Thank you to our sponsors for today's video: Eaton, EVCS, Ionna, and InfyPower. Eaton is a one-stop shop for implementing reliable and innovative EV charging infrastructure at your site. Across all applications, Eaton's EV charging infrastructure, hardware and software, gives you the scalability, flexibility, and intelligence you need to charge today and scale up tomorrow. Learn more at eaton.com/EVCI. Also, EVCS 2025, the premier EV charging expo. From utilities to policymakers and tech innovators, the key players in shaping EV infrastructure are coming together at EVCS Las Vegas on March 25th through 27th. We would love to see you there. Also, Ionna, North America's premier charging network. With unmatched commitment to elevating the customer experience, Ionna is opening America's roads to all EVs, giving drivers the coverage they need, the reliability they deserve, and the amenities they crave. And InfyPower, the largest EV charger module provider with over 3 million power modules running reliably worldwide. Their latest G2 collection features ultra-high power density and efficiency for EV charging and energy storage integration. InfyPower, innovation for your power.
Hello and welcome back to Out of Spec Reviews, and welcome to our first impressions on driving the Cadillac Optic, the all-new gateway vehicle to the EV lineup under the Cadillac brand name, which all end with IQ. Again, you have the Optic, the Lyric, the Vistic, the Escalade IQ, Escalade IQL now, the big boy that looks proper, and even the Celestiq, which is top of the line. If you have to ask how much it is, you can't afford it. I can't afford it. Anyways, we are now here 2 weeks after we gave you guys our full tour of the production-ready Cadillac Optic. It's very interesting because we had to actually wait 2 weeks to now share our driving impressions with you after we drove the car, which presents, interesting optics. Care to explain, Isaiah?
Well, this does present some interesting optics. You can see one of these at your local Cadillac dealership. These have been delivered to customers for quite some time, towards the end of 2024, late December. So yeah, having to wait to drive it when they're already in owner's hands.
Yeah, that's a very interesting thing because basically people could get their own driving impressions far earlier than the actual journalists, the press, could actually share the driving impressions. I don't know why that is. They haven't really explained that, but we've seen that not just at Cadillac, with other companies too. Hyundai, Kia, they've also done the same type of thing where the press drive, actually the last time I drove this road was in the Kia EV9 press drive event, and that was way after Kyle had already driven it, the one from the dealership, which is hilarious, but that's kind of the optics of the situation. Now we should probably get rid of this pun because people are gonna stop watching right now. I promise, no more puns. But optically speaking, this thing does look pretty good, I think. Isaiah, would you agree?
I mean, visually looks amazing.
Yeah, so this is, like I said, the gateway vehicle. It's the entry level. They didn't really like the term entry level, but Cadillac, I guess, is meant to be this luxury car brand under, of course, the GM group. So this is actually shared underpinnings with the Chevrolet Equinox EV. Has the same 85 kilowatt hour battery pack, the same low voltage, like almost industry leading low voltage. Is that a thing? it's like I forget, but in the realm of 300 something volts. So not great charging. You're gonna see, from what I've heard, a top charging rate of about 150 kilowatts. We'll of course put something on the screen if that's been corrected since then, but 10 minutes of charging will get you about 79 miles. Also not industry leading, but decent. This will do 302 miles according to the EPA. Of course, we'll test that when we get it back in Colorado to do all of our testing. But right now, today, we're just really driving it. We're going to see how this 300 horsepower, 350 pound-feet of torque vehicle handles the open roads. We are here on beautiful Highway 1 in California. I mean, you can see this is the Inverness waterway situation. Not really sure what you call this exactly, but it's just on the other side of those mountains is the ocean. So we're close to the ocean, but not like quite there. But again, we've already done a full tour of this car, but really quick, we'll just breeze over what we're looking at here. This is the Luxury 2 trim. There are Luxury 1 and 2, and there's Sport 1 and 2. So those are basically just how shiny do you want your wheels, and do you like this chrome? Cadillac noticed a lot of people do delete the chrome nowadays, so they have the Sport model for that. They're trying to appeal to a younger audience, maybe older millennials, so not really younger, but in Cadillac terms, definitely a bit younger. And I think it could work. Their whole ethos is this is meant to appeal to the younger, tech-forward, performance-minded individuals. I'm curious to see if that's really the case, because it's a 5,000 pound CUV. On paper, the specs, I mean, far better power to weight ratio exists in like the Model Y. So this is, I don't think it's going to be that powerful of a beast, but then again, you have more powerful options even from Cadillac. If you want to spring for the Lyriq V, that thing probably rips. I would love to drive that. But at a affordable for Cadillac starting price of around $51,000, $52,000, this ain't too bad. It comes with a lot of stuff as standard and looks pretty decent. Let us know what you think of the looks. And again, we have a full tour, actually kind of 2 full tours now on the channel of what this car looks like. We've even done a podcast with the head of the exterior design, interior design. We've covered a lot of that. So today, to keep this reasonably relatively short, let's go drive. Oh God. Oh my gosh. Okay, let's lower that a bit. If anyone finds yourself in that type of emergency where you get in a GM vehicle and the chime volume has been turned up to max, here's how to take care of that. Go into home, go into settings, go into vehicle, go into comfort and convenience, go into chime volume and turn that down. What's funny is it shows you how much further it could go. They just don't let you. They choose not to let you. So that's a decision.
So weird. You'd think they would just show you how much you can change it. Instead, they're like, we're going to show you that you can lower, but
right.
Not let you.
So, jumping right in, throwing it into drive. Let's see what this thing can do. Full send. And braking around the first corner, hitting the apex. Things are flying. Yes, they assume that's what happens. You get in, you're very technologically advanced, you know exactly where to find the chime volume, and then you launch mode from the parking spot because you are a performance-minded older millennial. At least the Super Bowl commercial will go along those lines somehow. But just enjoying our drive out here. We've admittedly been driving this a bit of today. It's been a bit of a hodgepodge trying to get everything filmed, but trying to get lots of content for you guys. And yeah, now we can finally talk about how it drives, how it rides. Isaiah, your impressions on the ride quality?
Ride's nice. I would say ride's a little better than an Equinox, but doesn't ride as good as the Lyriq. Of course, right. Placement-wise, it's kind of where it is. But it's a nice vehicle.
Yeah, so they've got a frequency response damper situation that seems to handle things quite well. It's of course not a fully adaptive suspension, but this is comparable to something you would see on Tesla. Actually, a lot of cars have moved to this frequency response dampening way of thinking, and basically just reacting to undulations of the road, frequencies created, and adjusting dampening on the fly for that. And it results in, yeah, honestly, a really comfortable drive. But then when you really want to hammer down, it does feel fairly planted for a CUV. I mean, I think we're coming up here into some of the twisties, and it really, obviously, this is 5,000 pounds. You've got a lot of weight here, and a Cadillac is a Cadillac. It can't really hide behind that. But you can still, I would say, more than what anyone else would probably look for in a CUV, like this can handle it okay. Now, couple complaints. There is no way that I can find to completely turn off the motor fake engine sound. I don't know what you call that exactly. There's probably a technical term for it, but the piped in sounds you can make stronger. You know, if we go here into drive modes, into sport mode,
Who doesn't love that? Turn that up more.
Turn that up to match the chime volume. I feel like that would just get pretty old. And I will say sport mode really, really stiffens the steering like to an obnoxious, insane level. I feel like when I picture Cadillac, I do think of some of the cars of old. I mean, that's why they can't get rid of the hood, even though there's no engine up there, because the Cadillac design language is like an old cruiser. And you're just like, that back then they had a lot of play in the steering wheel. Now there's, fortunately no play. It makes it more direct, easier to position, but the stiffness of sport steering is insane, really intense. So I would just leave that off. You can, of course, adjust some things in my mode. So now I have brake in touring, steering in touring, acceleration in sport, motor sound in touring, but there is no off. That would be the first thing I would want them to add. They have changed their tune on software updates. When me and Kyle first went and checked out the prototype vehicle, the mood of the room was that they weren't super interested in software. This is allowed, like it's OTA capable, but they just didn't see that as a need. They're like, well, if we ship a perfect car, why would you need to update it? But it is just, there's not really such thing as a perfect car. But with iterations of updates, you can approach perfection and get closer and closer to what I think the ideal Cadillac would be. And you can also add features that you didn't even know you were missing before. So that would be nice to add. Like this whole video, hopefully, is us taking notes for what we want, like the wish list situation. And not that many complaints. We touched on software quite a bit in our full tour video, and I'm also planning to do an entire software deep dive when we can get our hands on one where I can have phone access, discuss the app, phone is a key, how all that works. Leave your wish list and the notes, the comments below if you want to see anything really specifically covered from the tech perspective. But I think it's very interesting observing the tech that they are throwing in these cars, especially this car, which is proclaimed as the tech-forward situation. Speaking of tech, we do have the digital rearview mirror up here. That works quite well. I'd say not like the best, but like up there with some of the best. What do you think of the digital rearview mirrors in general?
It's a little trippy because it's not like a regular rear mirror where depending on the angle you're looking at the rear of the vehicle. But I imagine in terms of use, you're getting a fuller view of what's behind you.
Yeah, I'm torn because I like digital rear mirrors a lot. I like them also for other seats and from other seats because the benefit is everyone can see the back, unlike a traditional mirror, which I can obtain by flipping that down. I can look the GoPro in the eye and also see through. But the benefit of a normal rearview mirror is you don't have to readjust your focus from the road ahead of you to the road behind you. It's the same focus distance. Whereas on a digital one, unfortunately, you have to readjust from a far focus to a near field focus distance with this. But it's not a big deal. Your eyes are pretty good at it. It's pretty easy. But it's on the car, and it is standard. On all Cadillac Optics, this is standard. Also standard on Optics is Super Cruise. We'll do that when we get on the highway here in a bit. But for now, just cruising on these gorgeous roads, driving myself, it's fine. But that is another thing that separates them from some of the other competitors is there are other cars. Like the last time I was on this road, it was actually with the Audi e-tron Q6 e-tron, which has lane centering that you can do pretty much anywhere. This does not have that, unfortunately. It does have lane departure assist. They have a whole suite of safety features that are standard, but there is no way to actually, as far as I can tell, do, yeah, we would just send you into the pool, and then I say it would be no more.
Great.
So, that's not tech forward, if you ask me. Yep.
Yeah.
So, it is still safer to have the lane departure correction than nothing at all. I appreciate that. I appreciate them having safety features as standard. Everyone should do that, of course. Don't remove something, but it's Super Cruise is pretty good. We'll talk about that later, but it would be cool, and they are, of course, adding more and more roads. By the end of this year, they should have 750,000 miles of roads mapped for Super Cruise. However, we've seen a lot of issues with mapping, such as if a construction zone adjusts the lanes, there's a lot that can affect pre-mapping. We've seen that in our ADAS testing, so we'll see how that looks with this thing as it gets rolled out. But otherwise, another thing that's standard is Dolby Atmos. That is something I am pretty passionate about. I am admittedly, I don't want to say audiophile because that makes me sound pretentious. I appreciate good audio though, and I appreciate Dolby Atmos. I am one of those enthusiasts from an early age. Not really early age for me. Dolby Atmos hasn't been out that long, but since it came to music, I've been an advocate. What have you thought? Because we've listened to an hour and a half of music now in this car. What was your impression?
As a Rivian owner, anything is better than that system. So for me, it was really good. I mean, we played quite a few songs in different genres and different tempos and highs and lows. And so being able to hear that, hearing audio back there with a different beat and up here and the voice here, back there, it's been a good experience. I would say the audio Cadillac has that dialed in.
Yeah, I've been able to try Dolby Atmos on a number of different vehicles, and Rivian unfortunately just doesn't have a great implementation in the R1 Gen 2. I will say R1 Gen 1 with the Meridian system that Kyle's was delivered with, really pretty solid truck. Solid system, sounds great. Hopefully Rivian figures out sound, because that's an important piece to me in vehicle ownership. And selfishly, I mean, I think my girlfriend is realistically going to be an R2 owner, maybe even an early R2 owner. And so having that nailed by the time R2 and R3 come out would be ideal. But Volvo also does it with Bowers & Wilkins system. Lucid, that one's pretty good. But this has got to be probably one of the better Dolby Atmos scenarios, and of course we talked about that a bit in our full tour video, but it's an important aspect of driving, I think. And what I'm listening to when I'm driving is very dependent on the car. I drive so many different cars as my job, and so it really matters how that system is, whether I listen to that'll determine whether I listen to podcasts or music. And I'm a huge podcast fan, so I'm not settling for a podcast. It's just okay, what am I doing today? And with this car, I would probably pretty much exclusively listen to music, because it is, I would say, even an occasion. They partner with AKG. It is I think 19 speaker system, which is pretty good. The Escalade IQ has 42 speakers, at least optionally, at least 36 minimum, but 42 or 34 minimum, 42 if you include the headrest speakers, which can be had in both executive rows. That'll be its own separate video. But this sounds really pretty good. It's a 7.1.4 system. For those who don't know the terminology, nomenclature for Dolby Atmos, that is 7 channels at kind of your eye-ear level, and then 1 subwoofer channel. There are technically 3 subwoofers, and then 4 height channels above you. And then the music is mixed in a 3-dimensional space, and those objects within the music are dumbed down to where these speakers are located, usually taking up multiple speakers. But it's through this system, you're able to throw objects, instruments, voices all around the car, which is really cool. So it's fun. It can be gimmicky, but it's not the system's fault. I've heard amazing Dolby Atmos music. I've heard less than ideal Dolby Atmos music. Totally up to how it's mixed. I don't love how everything's mixed. I totally understand the people who love it stereo. Still a good system in stereo, but I think what makes this special is the 7.1.4, which is largely reference to a Dolby mixing studio. In fact, when we were out here, last night, the welcome dinner was at Dolby headquarters in San Francisco, and Dolby was there showing us their theaters where they listen to things in 64 channels of audio and where they mix audio. Is really fascinating, and it's clear that Cadillac is full send, all in. They're rolling it out to their entire lineup in 2026. So I'm happy to see that. But I think they said there's only 2 apps it's currently available on, and that's a big issue I have with the car. You know, this video is obviously a summation of everything good, but also I don't want to sugarcoat any problems. And while there's nothing inherently big that's a problem, it's really just ideally, in this ideal feature of Cadillac, Apple Music would be involved in their infotainment, because there is no CarPlay, no Android Auto. I mean, it's sort of an Android automotive-ish system, but they have Google Maps, which we're using now, and Google Assistant. You can also use Alexa. But no Apple CarPlay, no Apple Music. Did I say CarPlay or music earlier? I don't know.
No Apple CarPlay, but no Apple Music.
No Apple Music is what I meant to say would be really ideal to add, especially because Apple Music now supports Dolby Atmos. So that would be ideal, and we'll see if we get there. We'll see how Cadillac does their over-the-air updates, how proficient they are with that. That's like top of my wish list, genuinely. We should talk about NVH though. Just quietness.
Yeah.
I mean, you have a Rivian, which that's a nice car, but does have wind noise.
Highway speeds is just half music, half wind.
Right. How do you feel about the NVH, the noise, vibration, and harshness of this ride?
Pretty good. On the highway it wasn't there enough for me to notice it. You know, it wasn't a topic of conversation. This is pretty...
Right. We've been able to talk the whole time, listen to music in nice fidelity the whole time without having to worry about, even think about road noise, highway noise. Sure, it's not gone. It's not there, but it is refined. It is nice. Part of that is the suspension we talked about earlier. Frequency response dampers really do help with ride comfort. This is tuned to be, I'd say, probably slightly more on the comfort side. Not totally focused on performance, but there's also not, a ton of body roll. There is the expected body roll, but nothing crazy. But another component up to that is the glass is double paned everywhere. Every pane of glass, at least that they told us, is double paned. So acoustically improved glass. Part of that is the materials. I mean, there's soft touch, nice materials everywhere. We have leather in the doors, recycled yarn in the doors up top, which is really cool. And even the door pockets are lined with carpet. Like, I can't wait for Colton to get his hands on one of these at the Alispec detailing channel and really give it a good run through. Maybe we can borrow one from our Cadillac dealer if they don't hit the fleet soon enough, but that's another weird situation of we're trying to use the press fleet and work with Cadillac, but also we're trying to get you guys as much information as humanly possible as quickly as possible. So it just puts it in a weird situation. But is there anything you don't like about the materials in this car, just observantly or otherwise?
I think this fabric being in a lot of touch places, like my hand naturally being here, I also worry with moisture with the windows down. I mean, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how this ages.
Right. That's a great point. Seeing how, when cars are in the showroom, it's one thing, but cars aging over time, will this fabric get worn down? Will it fade? I mean, plenty of people live in nice climates like where we're at now, where they drive with the windows down. Is it susceptible to moisture damage? Will it fade faster than whatever else would you put up here normally? It would have been cool to have the fabric on the dash. I think maybe, like in my head. The leather is, of course, nice across the dash. It is a little bit shiny, and the fabric would mute it a little bit and make it for less, I don't want to call it glare, that's too harsh of a term. It's not really glaring in my eyes, but that would be kind of nice. Otherwise, like touch points, genuinely are nice. That what I feel about the Cadillac IQ vehicles is that what you're normally touching is really great. The steering wheel, where your arms sit. But then you move on to the capacitive buttons on the steering wheel, which I think are a bit chaotic. I love this like chamfered, I forget what you call this terminology, but textured buttons on the steering wheel. Really like those, and they have a really nice click, audio volume, following distance for cruise control, etc. But then you have all the capacitive buttons, like a whole sea of them below that. I don't really like them. Heated steering wheel looks almost the same as a Super Cruise button, and they're side by side. And then like having track, reverse, and next, I feel like that should have been next to volume. I don't really know why it wasn't, but again, minor things, just somewhat nitpicks, but also like they genuinely kind of bother me. Just the amount of piano black plastic. Turning my cooled seat on, there are heated seats, which can be just the back or the button back. Also ventilated seats, which are super nice. And you even have massage. So I'm going to turn my massage on. And I think it is very subtle, but it is there. So why not, I guess. Turn it on and enjoy it. It is a very subtle massage, but I will take subtle massage over no massage. That definitely does separate this car from some of the competition. You know, a lot of people are thinking, new Model Y, looks great, around the same price point as this. But this does feel like that step up in luxury that I think some people really care about. Some people buy the Model Y for its tech. That does charge better, that has more power, a bit more nimble feeling, it does weigh a bit less. More storage capacity, like that does win on paper in a lot of ways, but it just doesn't feel quite as luxurious as this. So there's a trade-off to be made. Otherwise, you have this material down here, which is really cool. We talk about that in our other videos, but it is like a paper?
Yeah, newspaper that is then turned into a wood style vinyl thing.
Totally cool. Cadillac's having fun with materials. I love to see it. I mean, that was the saving grace for the Mazda MX-30 that no one likes to talk about because it was such a bad EV, but it had cool recycled materials and cork and stuff. I love seeing Cadillac pay attention to that. So, and I like having the climate control buttons down here. Really appreciate having those. I think a lot of people do. People seem to be kind of tired of the climate control menus being deep into the settings of the screen. Now we're back in the twisties of the beautiful, beautiful trees. I could genuinely live out here. Oh my gosh. Give it some beats. It does have the power readout on the screen, and 300 horsepower is something like 215 kilowatts, I think. So not really sure why it says I'm hitting like 200 and I think I've seen 220, 230, maybe 240 kilowatts. I think I saw 240 on the readout. I'm not sure how that's possible unless there is like brief peak power. Like if I floor it right here, yeah, 240 right there. That was kind of wild. But as far as putting the power down, it does sometimes feel a little bit torque steery. This is a front wheel drive kind of biased car. I need to figure out the power breakdown between motors. But it is a permanent magnet front motor, induction rear motor. That helps with getting the power down and of course giving you traction in low mu environments. But it does not, yeah, it still feels a bit front wheel drivey to me, which is okay. I mean, front wheel drive is kind of the natural way a lot of cars do drive, but now we live in this EV world where you can change that pretty easily. And this being targeted to like a performance-minded individual, that doesn't feel very performance-y to me. I've had some challenges with torque steer in really aggressive settings, but then again, how many people are really driving it that way? Like, that's a valid point that some people have made, but I only point this out because they intentionally are saying this is like targeted to some of the younger, more tech focused and performance focused people in the demographic, and I just don't feel like it super leads in that regard. It's okay though. It's, I think, totally acceptable as far as performance. Would be really curious to get Kyle's thoughts. He is definitely more performance minded than I am, but also even myself is like more performance minded than the average person, and especially the average person that might end up with this car. I wonder how many decibels you can pull out of having the cooled seats on and the massage. That is a benefit of upping to the 2 trim, the luxury 2 trim or the sport 2 trim, getting ventilated seats, also rear heated seats, which I just have to note, those are all standard in the new Model Y, for probably a much cheaper starting price tag. But those are nice to have. GM does know how to make good air conditioning, good heat, so no complaints there. Yep, definitely some torque steer there as I pass the bicyclist. And I've noticed also, especially in the really tight corners, whenever ESP is really kicking in, like traction control is trying to help you and take over, that somehow is not talking to the regen system. And so I have this on full high regen. And then sometimes when ESP kicks in, it freaks out the regen, and then you lose what you think is enough regen. And then I give it some accelerator pedal, and then more regen comes in. A super weird, confusing, like, basically hasn't fully been tuned for that specific scenario. I get it, it's an edge case scenario, but it's still worth mentioning. If you're getting this to carve in the canyons, for lack of a better term, you might find some weird issues, or you might just want to turn off traction control, which sounds a little scary in a car that weighs 5,000 pounds, but then again, it's not a lot of power, so maybe you'll be okay. Before we jump on the highway, I have to mention, we can't find the state of charge of this vehicle. It does not exist. We've tried every driver screen, and nothing actually shows state of charge. If it's in there, someone tell me. But we tried every setting, checked every menu. This car has no place to say state of charge. Sure, it says rated range, which right now is 140 miles, which is, yeah, just under 50%, high 40s probably. But that's, I don't know, that seems kind of unacceptable to me, my opinion. Let me know if I'm wrong, but like, I feel like that's good to know your state of charge. No one's gonna walk into, like, you go to a dealer and they're like, yeah, excuse me, what's the charge on your car? And they're like, 120 miles. Like, that could mean anything, depending on how you're driving, how many hills. Are we in San Francisco like this and going downhill for the past like 2 miles? Then your car will say something different. That just is crazy to me. Okay, let's just launch it real quick here. Yeah, definitely a delay before when you hit the throttle, and then it jumps into the power, which is, again, not a lot of power, but enough. Like, this is genuinely enough for most people. And what a better place to test Super Cruise than the Golden Gate Bridge. Just normal out-of-spec testing over here. And before I do that, though, I was going to say we tested regen earlier off camera, but full off regen, from what I can tell, is about 125 kilowatts. And then if you do full off regen with the paddle, brings you up to about 150 kilowatts. That's a good amount of regen. It's not insane, but pretty great. Their one pedal driving has off, medium, or high, and it works really quite well. Pulling over here, let's jump into the right lane, throw on Super Cruise. Boom, there we go. It's on, system's on just like that. I love that it's very obvious when the system's on. You can just see this green marker on the steering wheel, and it really does seem to be a pretty good system. This is equipped with the full Super Cruise suite. I guess there's levels of Super Cruise, but this has automatic lane changing, which you can turn off. And if I owned this car, I would, because while it changes lanes automatically, it's not, I'd say, the most smart about it. And it has no idea what the navigation's saying, even though it's all part of the car. The navigation might say exit in 0.3 miles, and the car will attempt to take a left turn to pass someone on the left lane, which makes no sense because you're about to exit. So it's just not smart to that degree. But then sometimes it doesn't do lane change at all. Like right here, naturally we should lane change because we're going slow behind a Chevy. And you have a Bolt ripping down the left lane. This is very normal California things. But it's not. Oh, and Super Cruise is unavailable, no road information. So I guess that's my main beef. We've already kind of mentioned that, but well, Super Cruise requiring pre-mapping is just kind of frustrating. So I don't really love that. But when the system works, when it's on, kind of like Rivian system, it works. It does really pretty well. So I don't have any major complaints. In fact, it does seem like it worked a little better than this than I drove a Silverado EV to Vegas last week, about 800 miles. Super Cruise was still decent, but it didn't feel like super confidence inspiring, whereas it does feel a bit more confident in this car. I guess Super Cruise is not available now. Let's try again. No. So I guess even though we're still on the 101, we're past the Super Cruise section of it, which is, I don't know. I think it's silly. I think Tesla does autopilot very well. A lot of other cars do have lane centering functions, but I mean, you have a Rivian, which does not lane center everywhere. Does that bother you?
Very annoying. Yeah. Especially in Tallahassee, where other than I-10, a lot of the highways going south or north towards Atlanta aren't mapped. And so on those roads where you're going 75 miles an hour, you can't use Driver Plus. You're just driving manually.
That's wild. And sure, this has, I guess dumb cruise control, has adaptive cruise control, but not with lane centering, that should be the big perk. And so I really don't think it should be limited to mapping. I understand pre-mapping for the hands-free, I guess. It gives another level of confidence. But for people just wanting to cruise on very clearly marked 2-lane country highways with no lane centering is still wild to me. And that is a big thing that takes this car away from feeling tech forward. Fine, Super Cruise is good. It is techy. It is fun to have hands-free driver assistance. But with the people who are working with a majority case of not a pre-mapped highway, I think it is a bit more frustrating. But just a quick snippet on Super Cruise over the Golden Gate and some highway cruising as well, which we've done a good amount of that today. It really is refined. Like I would absolutely road trip this thing, but I would complain at every charging stop. And so if it's just not a great charging car, not fast, not bad, it's just middle of the pack, solidly middle of the pack. And I don't know how many people will road trip these, but I do feel like as I guess entry level gateway car to Cadillac, there might be more people who would consider road tripping. And yeah, it can do it, but not amazingly. Again, not class leading. So I would love to see, I don't know if they could do that over the air, improve software, etc. And I don't know, we're still learning why there's so many cars that do have kind of mediocre charging speeds. Like, can the batteries not handle it like we think they can, or can they handle it and we've just been too conservative? I'm not really sure, but would love to see better charging. Would have been cool to have an 800 volt situation, but I get it. This is not the double stack battery like the Hummer, the Silverado, Sierra, all those have. And yeah, I mean, Rivian's also not super high voltage, so it's not like everyone has to be high voltage, but this is a lower voltage car. So we'll try maybe a race to Vegas with this car. I think that'd be a lot of fun, really put it through the ringer. And like I said, we'll get it through all of our testing in Colorado as soon as we can get our hands on one. But for now, great drive, really enjoyable, good sound system. All the things that I mostly care about are just fine. So I guess let's head to the bottom of the Golden Gate for some final thoughts. All right, we made it to the end. That's been driving the Cadillac Optic. And what a beautiful place to finish up, right by this gorgeous golden Honda Civic. Just kidding. Gorgeous golden bridge, Golden Gate Bridge. Pretty cool, pretty interesting. Marvel of engineering, and makes me kind of want to watch a documentary. Anyways, the Optic, why we're here. It's great. it drives well. Sure, I don't think it's as performance-y as they argue that the target performance market might be looking at. I don't think it's as tech forward as I want. I do think objectively Lucid and Rivian and Tesla do all kind of beat the tech in this just a bit, but it's competitive tech. It's competitive in all the offerings. Dolby Atmos is great. Comfort is great. NVH is great. It's not very powerful. I do feel like it's a little underpowered for how cool and aggressive it kind of looks, especially right here in this lighting. I really do like how it looks. Even the luxury trim that we have right here, I'd prefer the sporty one. I think that's the one most people I know would look at, and myself included. I prefer the blacked out everything. But I do like this, and even though I'm more of a color person, it does look pretty good in black, white, and gray, although they do offer, you know, blue, red, the celestial purpley gray color, and the orange that Isaiah loves. But yeah, it's been a pretty great drive, honestly. I mean, they take us to a beautiful place like this to maybe let that influence our decision on the car. But regardless, in a vacuum, it still is a very nice place to be, both statically, but also driving around. I do wish it had car mode, camp mode. I'd love to camp in this thing. I know people are like, why the heck? Colton, our detailer, is like, why would you camp when you can get a hotel room? But I love camping in EVs. I think it's a really interesting, unique component to having an EV. Just keep climbing on. You can kind of do this. You have to work around. You can do, I think it's the accelerator 3 times, mat that 3 times, and then press the brake, and then that keeps the car on permanently. It's a weird hack. It's silly. Just put camp mode in there. Put dog mode in there. A lot of people prefer that and even make buying decisions based on that. Super dog people. But hey, sound system's important to me. They nailed it. It sounds really good. Maybe 2 more bands of EQ would be awesome. Apple Music is needed, and Dolby can do it. So it's really just Cadillac as far as I can tell. I don't know if Cadillac and Apple have some thing, but I would love to see that relationship resolved, because the consumer would therefore win. Otherwise, yeah. What do you think, Isaiah? Any final thoughts?
This thing is beautiful. I'll give it that. Ride's nice. You know, I think just if they were a bit better on the technology software side, I think that this would be a very, very competitive vehicle with the Model Y.
Yeah, and they've changed their tune on software updates, which is good. I think they've embraced it, and so we'll see if they actually roll them out. You know, I have a Tesla, Isaiah has a Rivian. We see software updates all the time. I hope they constantly work on and look through resolving bugs. That's what a tech-minded person who might buy this car would look for. And just improving, yeah, the software. Some things are clunky to find. Like, if I want to adjust the audio settings, there's audio settings per app, and there's audio settings for the audio, and there's a different area to set like your ringtone and map chimes, and there's a different area entirely to do the GM chime. So there's just a lot of chimes. It's kind of aggressive, a lot of confusing system menu things that maybe they can still work out the kinks with, but as a whole, still a perfectly good car, plenty good to ship. Like, I have no one, well, they've already been shipping them for months. We've established that. So I'm glad I could finally share with you guys how I think it is driving, but chances are, if you're watching this video, you might already be looking at one, you might already have one, and maybe you're just waiting for some of the journalists' ideas before you went and bought one. They've been available for a while, like we said. We've driven that point home. So glad to see that they are rolling out more and more. I do hope it sells well. I hope Cadillac as a brand survives this, I don't want to say apocalypse. There's just a lot of new vehicles, a lot of new brands coming out, and brands that are now approaching legacy status like Tesla. And then Rivian is clearly making good stuff. So glad to see Cadillac keeping up with the tides, electrifying all sorts of things. It'd be cool to see a car, but I get it. Everyone and their mother wants a CUV. Cadillac has you covered. They have 4 IQL, 5 variants of SUVs if you want an electric SUV. And I like the Optic. It's great. Looks good. So I don't know if it's the one I would buy from that lineup. Lyric is pretty interesting. Vistic is pretty cool. Can't wait to try those out more. But as for the Optic, pretty thrilled. See you guys in the next one very soon. Bye.